In this list we're looking at the OI for the oi sound in the middle of a word, and you know that you use OY at the end of a word or syllable. So then we go down to the bottom, we've got another version of the OR sound, which is OAR. We have done this before, it's just a revision list with more words with that phonogram in it. Now the other thing to take note here is I've written down some of the other ways we can write the OR sound. So it's very important that you remember which OR phonogram is used in which word. Now the other thing we've got in this list is that we're using, if a word starts with the letter A, it may be given the schwat sound. So we've got avoid, appoint and upboard. We're not really pronouncing that A as avoid, a point or up at point or a board. So we know if there's only one consonant after the A, it should be given a long sound, A. But if there are two consonants after the A, this should be given a short at sound. But really, we're giving them all a schwat sound. So what do these words mean? So avoid means to keep away from or stop doing something. Appoint means to assign or give a job to someone or to decide on a time and place. Poison, as a noun, it's a substance that can cause illness or death. And as a verb, it is to poison, which means to administer poison deliberately or accidentally. An ointment is an oily substance rubbed on the skin for medicinal purposes or as a cosmetic. Boisterous means noisy, energetic and cheerful. If we're talking about the weather, it means it's wild or stormy. An uproar is a loud and impassioned noise or disturbance. It could also be a public protest or outrage. Aboard means to get on or into a vehicle. Boarding is a long flat piece of wood. It could also be where students may live during a school term, and it could also mean getting onto or into a vehicle. A cupboard is a piece of furniture with a door and shelves that is used for storage, and a skateboard is a narrow board with a pair of wheels at either end on which a person can stand or crouch and propel themselves forward. First section, you know you're going to read, cover, write and check each of the list words. Then down here you have to write the list word for the meaning. So we've given you the meanings for you to work out which word goes with each of them. Write the list word for these synonyms. So you've got to think of a word that means the same as the given words. Down here, fill in the gaps with the missing list word just to show us that you know the meaning of the word and how it would be used within a sentence. Now down here we're doing a revision of dependent and independent clauses. So finish the dependent clause using a list word. So each of these sentences are starting with an incomplete sentence, which we call a dependent clause. To make the sentence complete, we're going to add a comma after the dependent clause and then finish the sentence off with an independent clause. So don't forget that comma after the dependent clause. So we've got while she was boarding the plane, comma, and then you're going to finish the sentence off with that independent clause. So you can work your way through all of those. You know you have to read, cover and copy the word from above and then check to make sure you spelt it correctly. Down here we want you to combine with the list word. So we're looking for common word pairs to go with each of these given words. Plural, these are some nice simple plurals for you to form plural noun. So we've given you the singular, you have to change it to the plural noun. Verb families, we want you to fill in the missing words using list words or their extensions. So you're going to have to work out what the tense is and then make sure that your verb is written in the correct tense within each of these sentences. List the compound words in the list. That compound just means two short, small words joined together to form one word. Finish the sayings and explain its meaning. One man's meat is another man's. You have to fill in that missing word from the list above and then explain what that means. You've got 3 more to do after that one. Today's day 4 is about independent and dependent clauses and then compound and complex sentences. So what are independent and dependent clauses? So a clause is the smallest grammatical unit that expresses a complete idea, and it includes a subject and a verb. An independent clause can stand alone and become a simple sentence, whereas a dependent clause, which usually starts with a conjunction, cannot stand alone and must be paired with an independent clause. So first of all, we want you to go through and identify whether the clauses are independent, can stand alone, that's a complete sentence, or dependent, would need to be joined to an independent clause with a conjunction. So, hint, if you feel there is something missing, an unanswered question, it is probably dependent. So, the fly landed on my food, you have to just put an I if that is an independent clause, or a D if it's a dependent clause. So work your way through the set. Compound sentences are independent clauses joined with a coordinating conjunction to another independent clause. So there are only 7 coordinating conjunctions. If you remember the word fanboys, and then there's one word for each of the letters of that word. So for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. That's the easiest way to remember your coordinating conjunctions. For the compound sentences below, put a square around the coordinating conjunction. So go through and do that first of all. Then for each independent clause, circle the subject and underline the verb. So perhaps go through and circle all the subjects first and then go through and underline the verbs after that. So we've given you an example. I felt unprepared for the test, yet it was surprisingly easy. So we've just followed the instructions there. You need to work your way through that set. Now, complex sentence is when we join an independent clause with a subordinating conjunction to a dependent clause. So don't forget to put your comma after the independent clause and before the subordinating conjunction and the dependent clause. So highlight the independent clause in one colour and the dependent clause in another. You may want to do that first. Then, here's a hint. The dependent clause starts with a subordinating conjunction and adds a new idea to the sentence. That's why we're putting the comma before the subordinating conjunction. So work your way through those 4 sentences too.